friends. Hope you're all awesome today. I have a really special person here. He's my new friend, John Zenner. He's an attorney, Esquire. John Zenner, Esquire.
Thank you, Harjeet. It's a pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. I'm sure
Thank
you're
you.
going to share an interesting conversation with your audience today.
Thank you so much. We do appreciate you being here. As far as from what we were talking about last week, and this opened up my eyes as well, is the importance of estate law. So I thought this was really important to share. So I hope this gives value to somebody out there who's watching this. But before we do any of that, I want to just really thank you, John, for taking the time out of your day to share your knowledge, your wisdom, and your expertise to all of us. And right now, I just would want to know where did your passion for law come from, and what's your story?
Well, gee, how much time do we have? No, I think what I hear you asking me is why do I do what I do? How did I get there, and want to share that why? And
Yeah.
when people ask me what I do, is I tell them what I really do is I try to help people focus on creating new beginnings because I understand and appreciate just how important it is for people to gain clarity and security for their future. And I come from a background, I didn't start practicing law till I was in my 40s. Prior to that, I had a cleaning supply business, and I discovered that I love building things centered around people. And I started working with people to help them learn how to save money cleaning large office buildings. And I love that. I started also to get the law school bug, and the way I got the law school bug is my dad had been an attorney, and I liked the law, but I didn't have anything to do with my father as a kid. We didn't really engage until I was 27 and had my first child, and then a new world opened up to me, and we started talking about the law. I got interested in the law. I went to school part time. Lo and behold, next thing I knew, I was practicing law. And I learned when I started practicing law that the wonderful thing about the law at that time is everything that I did before in my life led me to where I was. And I was in the exact right position where the universe intended for me to be. Because I learned that as I mentioned earlier, I like to build things. I like to see people grow. I like to see the people on my team grow. I like to see my clients grow by learning new things. So my areas of the law are estate planning and also family law and divorce law, all things that are very emotional and very much about creating new beginnings. And I find that by trying to add as much value to people's lives as possible, I feel great about what I do, and it really, I hope, helps some number of people, and that's what keeps me going and what I enjoy about doing what I do. And it's in a shortened version by about 35 stories, the why why of what I do, and in estate planning, what I find is particularly with families, the first thing that they may want to consider is what are we going to do to secure our children in the future? And not a lot of people give that much thought. Most of us just go on with our lives in our 20s, 30s, and 40s, and sometimes into our 60s without giving any thought to what's going to happen with our kids if, in fact, anything happens to us during those years. And if you're lucky, you don't know of anybody who was in a negative position because they died prematurely and did not plan for their kids. So it's the first thing that we always try to focus on is the planning for the children in the future. If both parents, or if it's a one-parent family, if somebody passes away, uh, who's going to care for those children? What processes are you going to put into place to make sure someone of your choice will care for the children? So that's just one reason that I do what I do.
And that is an amazing thing that you do. So I thank you for that, because that is something that a lot of people don't think. I was one of those people. And I had my children at a very early age, 19 and 20. So I am really far behind on that planning part of, God forbid something does happen to either myself or my husband, who is going to take care of our children? And so that was an eye opener as well, as we grew older. And it's when we get into connection with people like you, John, who understand the law, who know what the importance is, and know how to get the proper structure in and keep it for your children. I think that is an asset that nobody can afford to lose. And so thank you for doing all of that and taking the time out at 27 to learn law, because it's not something easy to learn, and it takes a lot of your time out, especially after you have children and a family and another career that you switched from. So that's a huge applause.
Well, thank
When I
you.
was,
And I applaud you for all the great work you do helping people find the ideal home for themselves. It's
thank you.
very important, a very important job to perform, and service, actually, not a job, service to perform. And I know you, I know you're always thinking of the people who you meet, the people who are out there who have an interest in owning a home, and considering what homes they might be interested in, and why. And not necessarily because of a price, but I'll bet you keep in mind things like how close is it to the playground when they have no kids, or how close is it to the playground when they have six, and the important things that make life a little bit more enjoyable for each of us.
It is. It's the details. If somebody likes water, if they want to be next to the water, if they want to be away from the water, you got to look at all of that. Airplanes. So how close are you to the airport or the city if you're working there closer to the city? So yes, there's a lot of detail on that, and you got to put all of that into consideration when looking for it.
Yeah,
If it's behind a railroad or not.
yeah, no question.
A
You know,
lot of people don't think that
yeah,
far.
there's one thing you brought up is you had your kids when you were a kid, and and now I guess close to college age. And one
Oh
of
yes, they are.
yeah, one of the things, I know we had the
Yeah.
conversation earlier, and one of the things that we're doing nowadays, asking people to consider, what are you going to do as the parent of a 19-year-old or an 18-year-old who goes to the University of Wisconsin, and you're sitting here in Long Island or in upstate New York, and now your 19-year-old gets sick and is hospitalized. Well, if that 19-year-old was still sitting at home, you'd be in the hospital making sure the doctors were doing the right things and so on. But when you're here in New York and your 19-year-old, who is now considered an adult, is in a hospital, and the hospital takes the position that the 19-year-old is not permitted to share, not permitting them by law to share any information with the parent. What a horrible position to be in. Can you imagine if that was to happen here in New York? And of course it does happen in New York. But we can take care of that as parents by having a conversation with our on their way to college kids, and saying, look, let's sign. Why don't you go ahead and sign a power of attorney allowing mom and I to take care of business if you become injured, to take care of your bills, to be able to take care of agreements that you've made, to take care of things that may need to be done in the hospital for you. because, of course, we may be in a better position to help you make a decision
Yeah.
than the child making the decision totally on their own. So I think that that's one thing that a lot of people have not considered, and trying to tell as many people about it as possible. And part of what we suggest also is that the child complete a healthcare proxy, particularly permitting the parent to take care of any kinds of medical information that may need to be shared with the parent. And it can eliminate so much potential hardship. Now, the reality is there's probably, I don't know if it's 10% of the parents who find themselves in that position, or if it's 80% or 3%, but it doesn't make any difference. It's such a small thing to do for additional security to provide your kid with while they're away at college, to know that you can participate with them. And I know whenever I did it, had this conversation with my children, they said, "But of course, mom and dad, that's the right thing to do. I'm happy to sign those documents, so that this way you'll be able to help me out if I need the help."
And
So
it's such an important discussion to have with your children. And I'm so glad that we spoke, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, and that never occurred to me to even talk about this with my own children. I have a 16 and a 17-year-old, and they are looking at colleges right now. And once they hit 18, I'm not like, I'll be still, I know I'm going to still take them to the doctors.
good.
And I just won't have that access to their health or anything that will be, like you said, that will help them make the right decision if the access to those health records are not accessible to me or my husband. And so this is something that I think it definitely hit home, and I'm so glad that we are able to share this out right now to people that are close, that I'm close to, and the people that are watching out here. So thank you for that reminder, John. And that was the next thing that I wanted to talk about, was the estate planning, the different types of estate planning, and the importance of, we spoke about our children understanding what the health proxies are and what a power of attorney is. So if you could go into a little bit detail with what that is.
Sure, my pleasure. Every estate plan includes 4 essential documents that everyone should have. The first thing is either a will or a trust, and those documents share with the rest of the world what your assets are, who the people that you want to share those assets with are upon your death, okay, and also how it's to be distributed. Okay? And that's the short version of a will and a trust. That's and or a trust. That's the document that tells everyone, this is what I have, these are the people I want to leave it to, and this is how I want it distributed. Okay, that's number one item. The second item is what I had mentioned earlier, and you mentioned as well, Harjeet, and that is the issue of a power of attorney. A power of attorney is something that I sign, allowing a trusted advisor, a spouse, a child, someone selected by me, who will be able to take care of things that I'm unable to take care of as a result of a temporary disability. I go in for gallbladder surgery, and lo and behold, I develop sepsis, and instead of being there for a half a day, I'm in the hospital for 2 weeks. And during that 2 week period of time, I have bills to pay. Maybe there was a property management decision that had to be made, perhaps a sale of a house or a purchase of a house that had to be done. Could be all kinds of different decisions. And the decisions are listed, about 20 of them, and the person who wants to share that decision making process or give that decision making process over to a third party initials each one of the areas that they want to permit the person to be able to make decisions on their behalf. Okay, and that indicates to whoever they take the power of attorney to, it will show specifically what things the person is permitted to do. Now, one of the things the person who has the power of attorney, and I'll use my son Jonathan as an example, he has my power of attorney. Okay, he knows that if I'm disabled, he has to fill out an additional affidavit telling the bank that this power of attorney is currently in effect. Okay, because of the fact that my dad is disabled on a temporary basis, and please allow me to have access to the account. So he swears to the fact that the power of attorney is still in effect, and he provides the bank with a copy of the power of attorney, which stays on file until such time as I go ahead or he goes ahead and tells the bank that he no longer needs that proxy, that power of attorney at that time. It saves an awful lot of problems. Did you have a question, Harji?
No, I'm like soaking in all of this information.
Okay, well,
I
we
did
can.
want to mention just real quickly, if anybody in the audience does, this is on live stream, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So if you do have a question, you can ask it in the comments, and we'll be able to see it. So then John can answer any questions that you have when we're done. Just wanted to make sure everyone knew that, whoever's watching. And with the power of the attorney and that proxy, so when someone does an affidavit, where would they get that from, and who are they going to get that signed? Like, you would need to get that notarized.
That affidavit would be provided to them by the attorney when
Okay.
they first go ahead, when the grantor of the power of attorney first puts together the power of attorney. That affidavit is attached to the document and is filled out at the time that the affidavit is needed. You can fill in all of the blanks except the date that it's effective, because of the fact that the person, me, I'm disabled, so, and you put in the date of the disability, so that this way the person, which would be the bank, is aware that right now I'm undergoing some form of a disability, and therefore the person who I've granted the power of attorney to needs to go ahead and act on my behalf. Okay, and there's a tremendous number of things that they're able to do. They can buy and sell stock. They can go ahead and purchase property, as I mentioned earlier. They can pay bills. They can sell different products that I may have. There's virtually nothing that they can't do to be of assistance to me that I would normally be doing on my own. Okay. The other two documents that are very pertinent for the estate plan that everyone should have is a living will. A living will is the document that says, this is what I want done to sustain my life if I'm really in bad shape in the hospital. And most living wills say that if I am determined to be brain dead, or I'm in a permanently vegetative state and suffering from an incurable disease with no hope of recovery, okay, then I do not want very extraordinary means to be used to keep me alive. Okay, but rather I would rather I be permitted to die. Now that's a pretty heavy responsibility for someone to have, and who's aware of your living will, what you want done, as to sustaining life when someone is extraordinarily ill, and I you be assured that every place where a person would be on life-sustaining means in some way, shape, or form, and it's usually a hospital or a end-of-life floor in a nursing home.
Mhm.
Whatever, all of these locations have what they call um, a death committee, and the committee evaluates the patients who are on life support and will advise the family member, because it's usually a family member who has the decision making about the living will, when to employ it. And of course, the doctors are going to advise that person, and they're going to tell them, whether or not there is any hope of recovery. And sometimes the only thing that's sustaining a person is that they're not even being fed. They may only be receiving water for sustenance, and the elimination of that sustenance would automatically speed the dying process to a matter of hours, perhaps, instead of keeping the patient alive for days and weeks. That's an issue that has happened in my lifetime. It's gone from a point where you are not permitted to do what they call pull the plug. And because it was here in New York State, because of a case that came out of Mineola, New York, that actually the first case involved a religious brother who was working at Chaminade High School, and the leader of the order was requesting permission to take this monk off, or the brother actually, off of the life-sustaining measures. And it was a very, very big controversy for many, many years before the courts went ahead and ruled in favor of people to be able to do that. And that's how we came up with the statutory living wills and the healthcare proxies. It's a
That's really
serious decision. Uh, but then in order, the person then who gets to make the determination is the person who is told by the healthcare proxy that I would put together as to who is going to go ahead and actually make those end of life decisions for me, and also other medical decisions should I choose to include those as well, which I might do, for example, in the case of the kid going away to college. But every situation is different.
yeah.
And that, Harjeet, that's one of the things that we don't consider, that estate plans, everyone's situation is different, and most importantly, everyone's situation changes from time to time.
Yes.
People who first have an estate plan, may only have two children. Then
Mhm.
they have four children and they need to change the plan. Then they retire and maybe, the children are in good shape economically and they don't need to leave anything to the children. The
Mhm.
parent, the now grandparents, would prefer to set up in their wills or their trust the grandchildren because of the economic abilities that their own children have. So it's not something that is a one-time conversation.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that's like not a set in stone. Once you get it, this is what it is. You can change it throughout, and and that's really cool because like I had my two children early on, and then later on I had my third one. I think 12 years later. So like you would want to keep all of this up to date. And like my parents, they went from one grandchild to two to three to four, five. Now that five. Now there's five.
Congratulations to them. Very nice.
you.
No,
So
there's no question. It's one area where we as humans seem to automatically be hesitant to do anything about it,
yes,
and in reality, we should be thinking about it and reviewing it every 3 or 4 years, probably. You know,
yeah,
uh,
it's important. I
and
feel like it's so important, and I feel like you've really opened my eyes on looking at it more frequently than rather than just only thinking about it to take action on it. That's even the most more more important part is to take the action, because I feel like a lot of us, what we experience is that there's that fear of death. There's that fear of that nothing's going to happen. I don't want to think about it right now,
Right.
and that keeps us away from thinking about what may happen to us and what we would need in order to keep everything together, and prevents us from meeting experts like you, John, who can help us see the bigger picture and plan for our future.
Well, that's a good point that you bring. Hello, sweetheart. How you
She's here. Yeah.
doing?
She wants to know if she's on. Yes. Yes. She wanted to know if she's on TV punishment. I said yes, she
I,
is.
I was going to ask if there was anything she disagreed with. So I
She,
didn't. I like to make friends. I don't want to start off with an argument with your daughter there.
no, she agreed. She knows. She gave me a rough morning. So,
Well, tomorrow, hopefully will be a better and easier day for you. No, no
yeah.
question. But they're all good. Each day is a good day. The hard ones and the easy ones.
Yes, they are. It's a blessing.
Uh, you mentioned, the we both mentioned the importance of ongoing review,
Yes.
and I think that brings me to my something that comes to my mind, and that is that I want to share with our audience today, and that is please make sure you select a lawyer to do this work for you that has two things. That number one, that you know, like, and trust them. And sometimes that takes a lot more than just one conversation. And also make sure that you hire an attorney who has some life experience, because much of the issues of the changes that happen in our lives are experienced and by an older attorney as opposed to a younger one. And younger attorneys are wonderful people. I love them dearly. We're all great people. It's just that when you're dealing with blended families, with step parents, with adopted children, with foster children, you need to speak with someone you know, like, and trust, who also has some number of years of experience or has other people they can rely on to share those years of experience, because you don't get to have experience merely by wanting it. You have to live it. And that can be a very important factor in estate planning. Um, so, those are the two things that I urge your audience to look for when they seek out counsel in this area, or in
No,
any area for that matter.
yes, I totally agree. 100%. Know, like, and trust your attorney, and look at the life experience that they do have. That is a major factor in choosing an attorney that's going to help you organize and plan for your future, and not only just your future, your family's future, and the future of the legacy that you leave behind. So,
Very true. Very true. One of the things I wanted to point out to our friends today is the difference between a will and a trust. Um, I, at this stage of my career, I am no longer recommending wills. There may be some people who should only have a will, possibly,
mhm.
few and far between. And the reason why I no longer recommend wills for people is because when you have a will, automatically it must go into probate court. It must go to what we call in New York State the Surrogates Court.
Okay.
Surrogates Court takes a very long time. It's very busy, particularly now, post or during COVID, there's a lot more petitions that have been filed. If you don't have a will or a trust, and you have property to leave, you also must go to Surrogates Court. That's called an administration proceeding. If you have a will, that's called a probate proceeding. It takes a very long time. It's a public document, which means that anyone at all is permitted to review your will in the Surrogates Court at any time. And it's very easy for someone to contest the will should they choose to do so. But for me, the most important issues are that it's lengthy, it's expensive because you must have a lawyer to do that. You must also pay the probate court based upon the size of the estate, which is a cost. Whereas with a will, with a trust, I should say, you don't have any of that expense because a trust is essentially a private contract between the grantor of the trust, that's me, the person who's writing my trust. I'm going to make my trust and I'm going to call it the Zenner Family Revocable Trust, hypothetically. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my property in there and I'm going to make me the first trustee. So now what happens is I continue to control my property, although I'm also going to go ahead if I own a piece of land or a home or a rental building, I'll go ahead and I'll rename that building or retitle it as being the property of the Zenner Family Revocable Trust. Okay? And now what happens is that's a private contract and it does not go through probate. The property that I have that I want to pass along, I can pass along to my heirs without any governmental interference whatsoever. Okay, it's a private contract, and now when I pass away, I put within the trust, number one, who's going to be my successor trustee, and I direct or I can direct my successor trustee to take the property that I've put in the trust and I've already decided what's going in, and now go ahead and distribute it to the following heirs. Okay, so I maintain total control right up until I die. The amount of money that the house is going to be taxed on is going to be based not upon an increase in capital gains, because it's only going to pass upon death. So there won't be any capital gains tax to pay. Okay? And the trustee can go ahead and distribute the proceeds as I decide. And what we have is part of the trust. We also have a listing of the property that I would be placing into the trust. And I can add and delete from that list anytime I want, very, very easily, just by putting in a new addendum to the property within the trust, as opposed to doing an entire trust all over again. It's very simple to add and delete properties from the trust. Now, what I explain is a very shortened, simplistic version of a trust, because there are many, many things that you can put in a trust that would make the trust last a much longer time. You can distribute funds over the course of time instead of distributing it right after death. You can put together separate trusts within that trust that would take care of children who had problems and maybe needed some extra help along the way. The possibilities are unlimited. And one of the things I wanted to point out is that many people are not aware of is many of the accounts that people have could be payable on death accounts, and they would pass outside of your will completely or outside of your trust completely if you choose to do that. So it's important for those other accounts that you have, such as non-qualified IRAs, savings accounts, CDs, insurance policies. You want to make sure that those accounts that you have are payable on death accounts, and the appropriate beneficiary, meaning the one who you want to leave that money to, that beneficiary is designated, which you can change from time to time, keep in mind. But you want to make sure that that money is going to go directly to the beneficiary. And I can't tell you how many times people come to me and say, we don't know how to get a particular account brought into the estate because it turns out our uncle never put a beneficiary on it. So although maybe the guy went ahead and did a trust to avoid probate, he also had an account that he didn't include within the trust and forgot all about, and now the family has no other choice but to go through the time and expense of going through probate. So always be certain that you have a conversation with your lawyer about exactly what accounts you have and figure out how you can transfer them outside of your estate should you choose to do so, by being certain that they are payable on death accounts. And then there are other tactics and techniques to do as well. So I think that's my short course of estate planning for the day. I hope it was informative and I didn't confuse too many people.
It
Uh,
was very informative. Thank you so much. Would love to invite you on here again to go into deeper detail with the trust planning, because it is very important, especially someone like me in my field, and also like my colleagues. One of my colleagues, Catherine, I love her. She says, "Sounds like it's good to start planning early." Yes.
and Catherine, I knew you were smart as soon as you came on the chat.
It is. It's very important. I love the fact that we covered the children and the health proxies and the importance of, it doesn't even just matter if it's your children. Like for myself, I'm in my mid 30s and I have my dad as my health proxy. He's a doctor, and I would rather have him look at everything. If God forbid something does happen to me, he will be the person that can decide on anything. And my sister as well. She's a doctor. She's more aware of anything that's going to happen versus anybody else. That like I trust them. And so I have my three health proxies actually.
Right.
My dad, my sister, my husband.
So there may be a fight outside your room when the time comes.
Well, they will know what's happening. So ultimately, my husband has the decision, but they will have the ability to know everything so that they can make more of an informed decision. So me knowing that now, I did not take that into consideration for my own children, given the fact that they're getting older now, and I have a 17-year-old that's going to be 18 in a few months. So this is a conversation definitely to be had with both of them. And thank you for that, John. There's my daughter again. And
Sounds like she's got opinions like her mom. That's good.
she does. I greatly appreciate your time, John. And I have one more question, which is how can I and my friends here, help you serve families and other like that, serve people? How can we help you serve people?
I'll answer that question only if you'll answer the same question that I'm asking you and your colleagues. And I think we both would probably have the same answer.
Yes, we will. I'm pretty sure we will.
Very similar. All that I want to do is, have an opportunity to speak with people, to provide value, and I recognize that not everyone is going to
Yes.
to have additional questions for me, and there are many people who are going to find other people, other folks, because there's a lot of people like you and I, Harjeet, who are always looking to provide value to other people. So you can help me by putting me in touch with other individuals, other groups who would like me to spend or be nice enough to ask me to spend a half hour or an hour answering questions or making a presentation on a topic that's
Sorry.
of interest to the audience in the particular area that I work in. So that's my
Sorry,
answer.
I apologize.
Can I help you and your colleagues?
John, the same thing. I want to learn how I can help your network, how I can help your people. If you can introduce me to whoever, the question really is, how can I help service you and how can I help you make your life better than it was 10 minutes ago or a day ago? And that's really my goal. If I could help one person a day, that will make my day.
Well, some of the one of the full areas of the areas that I practice in, as you know, Harjeet, in addition to estate planning, is, as I mentioned earlier, family law and divorce, and it's kind of all goes together, and that's how why I'm in those fields. And as I encounter people who are going through divorce and are looking to sell their home, and are looking for ideas about how to do that, you
Mhm.
know, I'm happy to refer those folks to you because I know you will provide them
Thank
with
you.
with value, no question about it.
Thank you, John. I appreciate it.
Be my
And I know, like, this is something I don't know if a lot of agents do this, and it's just a little tip. Uh, Most of the time, when people are buying houses, they're either upgrading or they're downgrading their house. Well, I don't want to say downgrading, but they're going a bit smaller because their children have grown out of the house and they're looking for something smaller, or whatever the reason may be. They just may want to live in a smaller house, or they're growing and they have a growing family. These are important topics to talk about with your clients as well. It's not only that you're building a relationship with your client because you're selling a house with them, but they are making a major life decision. And along with major life decisions, there are other decisions around that, which it's just so imperative that they do get connected to the right people who will help them along that process, and to put them in contact with you, John, and like the right plumber and the right electrician. You want to make sure that you're connecting them to a group of professionals that will take care of them, just as you did, like just as I would do for my client. um, how I would service them, I would want to make sure that they're being serviced the same way in different areas of these decisions that they're making throughout their process in their life journey. So I
It's,
hope that helps somebody.
it's so important. One of the things that my office, and I'm sure you and many of your colleagues do the same, is I make it a habit of trying to make sure that we make a phone call to everyone we've ever done business with every year, just to say hi, how you doing, and is there anything that I can do to help you? That's all.
Yeah.
Just you know, and I find nothing is more satisfying than somebody calling and saying, you called me every year for the last 3 years, and I'm looking for a plumber. You got a plumber? There's nothing nicer than to know that
Yeah.
they're reaching out for another professional because of the fact that we have kept in touch and shown interest in them.
Yes.
And that's what we all need to do.
And that's the reward. The reward is really how um, how effectively are you impacting somebody's life and the
Yeah.
progress of it.
I had the most wonderful experience last night, Harjeet. I was invited to speak with 15 people in a statewide organization.
That is
And
awesome.
it was scheduled from 7:30 till 8:30. Well, we finally cut it off at about 9:15. It, it was so satisfying that almost everybody had questions, more than one. We had great conversation, and at the end, the person who was the director of programs for this statewide agency said that they would be in touch with me to give further presentations. And this morning by 10 o'clock, I had an email inviting me to give another presentation to the entire statewide group on November 7th. So what could be better than to know that I spent some time, provided value to people who then want me to pass on that value to other folks, and it's a wonderful feeling to know that you're doing that. And if you do it, like you say, with one person every day,
Yeah,
it's a great thing that you're doing.
it really is. Thank you, John, for that, because you just reminded me. How can we get in touch with you?
You can get in touch with me. I have a phone number, which is 516-746-0180.
Well, give me one more. 516.
746-0180. My office is in Garden City, New York. And the two people who are likely to pick up the phone is Allison, my office manager and paralegal, and my associate Della, two wonderful people, and or my client relationship coordinator, Cachette, who's an absolute
Well,
sweet.
I'm sorry, John. That's not hers. Give me 1 minute. I apologize. She just took my registration for my cars and ran with it.
All right. Well,
So you have you're in Garden City. That's your number up there on. If you see right there, that's
the
right there. There's John's number. And who are we going to get in contact with? Alice?
Other than myself, there were three people that they talked to. A young woman by the name of Keshet, Keshet. Another, she's my client relationship coordinator. Another person who's my associate, Della, and Allison, who's my office manager paralegal. Okay, and if we don't pick up the phone, leave a message. We'll get back to you as quickly as possible. We pride ourselves on returning phone calls usually the same day. And then also you can reach me by email at john@jmzesq.com. And my website where you might find some additional.
I'm sorry, John. Can you repeat that? John
at jmzesq.com. And my website is that same location, jmzesq.com. And there are videos there as well as on YouTube about different topics. And you can gain some additional knowledge by looking through those different videos and the other input that we've put in there.
There was so much information that I found on your website, John. I must say it was really valuable, and I loved the 5 points that you brought out on estate plan on planning. So thank you for that so much. I did a little bit of research before I got on.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you again for joining. I wish we were in person. I would have shared my jaw with you. As you see on the top, it says Jai with Realtor Jeet. So normally we would have tea or coffee if you wanted, whichever one. But I do make a special jar that my dad taught me how to make. I think I'm
Very good. Well,
gonna.
I look forward to having some down the road.
Yes, you will soon. I'm going to invite you, and we're going to have some chai and talk more about that trust, because I am really interested in learning more about it, and I know everyone out there is really interested in learning more about that, because it is um, it's a tricky subject and topic to talk about, especially if you don't know anything about it. So I would love to hear it from the expert.
My pleasure. When we I think we have an appointment set up, and we'll get conversating, as they say.
Yes, we will. Have
Well,
an awesome day, John. Thank you so much again.
you
And
do the same. And thank you, Ajay. You've been a wonderful hostess. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. Thank
uh,
you so
I
much for
appreciate you.
inviting me.
Oh, thank you. I'm definitely going to invite you again, and hopefully it would be in person where we could actually have some job coffee together,
Sure.
and the baby won't be crying in the back. But there's John's numbers, guys. Please do reach out to him. This is really an important topic to understand. If you don't understand it and don't have anybody to speak to, or just want to know more about it, do reach out to John. And he's local. He's here in Garden City, um, and he'll be able to help you. Thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye bye. Have a wonderful evening. Take care.